Welcome, welcome. This is a limited time only special live broadcast. I hope that you can see me and hear me okay. And there should be a way to chat. I would love to receive feedback and questions from y'all as I am sharing. So to begin with, for those who are currently present, can you give me the thumbs up that you can see and hear me okay? If someone could please write to me in the chat. We're going to be talking about Venus being opposite to Pluto and square the moon's nodes today. Live chat. There we go. All right. Good to see y'all. So the chat should also be recorded in the playback. So please be aware for those who are chatting, this will be recorded, but I would love to get your feedback and your questions in this particular share. Again, a bit of an experiment, limited time only, YouTube live broadcast under this current Venus, Pluto opposition. Shit, are you even going to be able to see this? That was kind of the whole point. All right. So what we have going on currently, it's a bit challenging to see, is we have the moon's nodes here. Oh, and it's even mirrored. Wow, this is great. Okay, so maybe my visual idea isn't so much working for today. So it's just me and my face again. But I'm going to talk about what's currently going on in the astrology, which is this morning, Venus just entered the sign of Leo and then went opposite to Pluto at 0 degrees of Aquarius. Okay, so here's Venus opposite to Pluto. Now they're both square to the moon's nodes at the very early degrees of Taurus, Scorpio. Okay, now the moon's nodes are completing their transit of the Taurus, Scorpio polarity. Now this is the technique and the evolutionary astrology I'm excited to share. Why this is a particularly important transit is because the north node in Taurus is ruled by Venus. The south node in Scorpio is ruled by Pluto. And this Venus is now opposite to Pluto exact today. And again, squaring the moon's nodes. So this brings up a very particular relational paradox. And this can really be provoking significant changes in how we are relating. This is affecting intimacy. This is affecting our hearts. This is affecting our wallets, how we are exchanging, receiving, giving, and showing up. Now, we'll talk about how, especially with the nodal rulers opposite, there's already a duality that we're exploring. The duality between Venus and Pluto is how we are topically, Venus, relating the deeper components of ourself, Pluto, the soul, our deeper motivations, our deeper desires. And there's a friction that's here. There's an uneasiness that is here. Our interactions can have this itchiness, this uneasiness at this time, but that's not really seen to be seen as negative so much as the actual dynamic, the actual evolutionary mechanism that we're using in order to change, grow, and evolve through our relationships. But there can very much be this mirroring. There can very much be this ping pong that can be exposing the deeper, more uncomfortable depths of our soul. And what we're talking about with Pluto Venus is how are we getting our deeper needs met in relationship, in money, finance? How are we receiving or how are we not receiving support? And the opposition aspect brings up this mirroring. It brings up this objective seeing through reflection back and forth. But this is why this particular moment in time can be so challenging, as the square to the moon's nodes brings up this time paradox, where there is this conflicting needs that can be very, very challenging to get perfectly all of our ducks lined up in a row, and how that can specifically be playing out between the Taurus Scorpio polarity is our need for change. Scorpio, progress, moving forward. Scorpio is also our need for intimate soul connection. Are we able to get into our deepest, most meaningful parts? Are we able to show and share our soul's passion? Are we able to have enough intimate relating that there is enough soul merging that's provoking us to actually evolve, learn, and grow? Is coming into a paradoxical relationship with the North Node in Taurus. The need for slowness, the need for space, the need to just check it out and take it easy and just, have a breather and settle down, and having enough distance from others to be able to return to center, to be able to fill ourself up. So this relational paradox can very much be going on between the dual need for space and intimacy, excitement that's spurring us to remain alive, and enough gentleness and slowness to continue to integrate and settle, honoring our own natural way and pace. Now, there's a very interesting duality between Venus, Pluto, and Scorpio, Taurus that I'm going to mention here as well. And by the way, those who are in the live chat, you're certainly welcome to share your feedback. You're also invited to ask questions about these dynamics or how it may be affecting you and unfolding in your life at this time. Again, this Venus-Pluto opposition brings an objective seeing. Like, we can't really avoid or miss the deeper Pluto dimension if we're honest. Because honestly, when it comes to the Pluto dimension, to be totally honest myself, I think it's a very rare percentage of the population that can even sink down to the level of Pluto, the unconscious, and really speak to our deeper power dynamics in relationship, our deeper, more hidden and unconscious motivating factors in terms of what we really want, what we really need. Because a part of this, Venus, Pluto, Taurus, Scorpio, is how are we getting what we need? And some of these desires and needs come from a very deep level of ourself that may be hard to admit. The Pluto dimension is not clean. It's not full of right and wrongs. It's not about how we would like to appear on the surface to appease everybody else in many respects. So we're really looking at these deeper, more hidden Plutonian dimensions, which honestly, I have observed only a small percentage of the population is even able to talk about those parts of themselves or to really admit these power dynamics within relationship. And that is a shame, because I will tell you, as the Plutonian astrologer myself, I've never observed a relationship where there is not power dynamics. So our capacity to talk about these things, to talk about our own motivations, what we need, what we're missing, what we crave, and what is driving our relationships right now. It's the time to really look at the deep end. Now, because Venus is opposite to Pluto, square the moon's nodes. Is this necessarily served on a silver platter? Do we have to take a look in the mirror? The answer is no. Because when planets square the moon's nodes, they're farthest from the plane of the ecliptic. There's this symbolism astronomically about disassociation. When planets are square the moon's nodes, they need to be integrated with the rest of us, our nature, the rest of the cosmos, the rest of the solar system. So Venus opposite to Pluto is we can have these conversations. We can be looking in the mirror, and we can be avoiding that depth, that discomfort. We could be avoiding the need to receive feedback from those that can meet us at core Pluto level depth. We can avoid the need to listen in a mutually reciprocal balance between give and take. And that's what we're really learning to master with this Venus-Pluto opposition square the moon's nodes in their own zodiac sign polarity of Taurus and Scorpio. And there's one more dynamic I want to speak to before I start to really lean into the live chat and see what questions may be brewing. Or if anybody has feedback, I'll tune in and see if there's a response that I have. But the dual nature of Pluto, Venus, Scorpio, Taurus is also the dual nature of the human being's fractal-like evolution on one end. We are always changing, we're always evolving, even if it's the very slow, barely perceivable type that's going on in the background. That evolutionary force is driving things forward. Even if we have the most extreme resistance to learning and growing, circling around the same patterns again and again and again, which we can really be looking at and feeling right now, we're going to pick some things up. We're going to not repeat the same things forever. And at the same exact time, there is a fractal-like structure to ourselves, to everybody else, to the life we're living, and that does not change. That's what the nature of a fractal is. It has the simultaneous Scorpio, infinite depth, and Taurus, stable, unchanging structure simultaneously. And I'll tell you, as I'm paying attention to this transit, and this is what all of us can be doing who are into astrology. We look at the astrology, we see it play out in ourselves, we see it play out in everybody else in the world. There really is this fact about how people don't change. This is something that's a personal reflection. I'm really seeing it. It's like, yeah, we really do have these patterns. We really do have these cycles. We really do have these natures that are always consistently the same. And the real Venus-Pluto work is through relationship, receiving that reflection back, we can become clear as to what the pattern is. Because so many of us know we may jump from relationship to relationship, but we always come full circle back to the same fundamental patterns, the same fundamental dynamics. We may even attract the same fundamental type of person in order to repeat the same fundamental relational dance. So that's something we can really be looking at. And again, in this paradoxical way, there's this frustrating core need to simply accept it for what it is. We're all going to be the same in the ways that we have this crystallized individuality. And there's a part in accepting what is. And at the same time, we need to learn and grow, not only through intimate interaction, but sometimes conflict, sometimes getting messy, really stirring the pot. And then in stirring the pot, we evoke some of the deepest emotional responses, reactions, and we learn and grow through that feedback. And that does change how we're relating. And this is what we're looking at. It's, again, very paradoxical. How can we embrace the parts in ourselves that aren't going to change? This is just how I am, Taurus. And yet changing how we can exchange that part of ourselves to be more richly met, to receive, to be able to share what we love and cherish and be received. So this is what we're talking about, is there's probably more questions than answers. There's probably more instability. But today we're at the actual boiling point where Venus just went into Leo, 0 degrees Leo, opposite to Pluto, 0 degrees Aquarius. So there's actually this significant turning point that can be taking place. And what we want is better connections, better commitment, better understanding of how to do exchange that allows for this natural, easy self-expression. Venus in Leo. And that is even where we can use this particular technique when planets are square the nodes. We look at the last node to conjunct that planet is how we're integrating that planet. So Venus in Leo is being integrated through the North Node in Taurus. How can we embrace this fundamental natural self-expression that just is what it is? This part of our fractal-like nature that's going to be the same. To really celebrate that part of ourself, to own that part of ourself, to embody that part of ourself. Those that will meet us where we are at, those are our people. Do we have to be met and understood by everybody? Chances are we can really be experiencing what is and what is not working through this mirror of relationship. And at the same time as embodying and embracing this nature of what is, our self-expression that's natural and spontaneous, not thought about, not compared. At the same exact time, this need to get messy and explore the unknown and to get into other people's fractals and to initiate conflict, because that's what we actually teach here on this channel, is that we don't avoid conflict. Is there a potential to avoid conflict right now? There really could be. We don't want to get messy. We don't want to destroy what we have. And paradoxically, if we are unwilling to get messy, it could just destroy things even more. If we avoid the deeper, unconscious, ulterior motivations, needs, and desires, those things are going to come out in increasingly distorted ways. So I'd love to hear from the group. We have a live chat going on. If anybody has any questions, if anybody has any feedback, and I appreciate someone just plugged Jeffrey Green's Pluto book. And this is an essential book, but this is cutting straight to the core of what we can be experiencing these days, what we're talking about in this video, and give us a terrific map for navigating these dynamics. So the book is Pluto 2, The Evolutionary Journey of the Soul Through Relationships. This Venus opposite to Pluto is having the capacity to change others just by showing up. Each of us has a heart chakra, Venus, that emits an electromagnetic force field. And this Venus-Pluto opposition is when we really, really look at those dynamics as well. We can enter into somebody else's life, and through the feedback that we can provide, we can be a catalyst of another person's life. In a Pluto square the nodes, easy to repress type of way. Again, if we keep those deeper feelings and passions of how we truly feel to a person under wraps, there's a funny way for triggers to be going on right now that can just be releasing all of those deeper feelings in a volcanic type of way. That's going to catalyze change and transformation in our relationships, regardless of whether we are choosing to or not. So it's really a most appropriate time to be especially aware and considerate of our effect on others, as well as how we are relating inwardly to ourselves. These moon's nodes are about to leave the Taurus Scorpio polarity in the next month. This is the month where we master Taurus. We've had these lessons going on the last 17 months, now complete and culminating. I have noticed in my years of studying astrology the moon's north node, whatever sign is transiting, that whatever that north node is transiting, that sign, that is what the collective is learning. But I have noticed we don't tend to really get it until the end of that transit. So this north node is completing Taurus in this next month, while this Venus-Pluto opposition is catalyzing this turning point in how we're showing up for ourselves and how we're relating to others simultaneously. And what this can largely be directing us into is a new centerpiece, a new way of coming back to ourselves, coming back to center, and drawing from the well of our own self-sourcing. But again, with that Pluto square the nodes, it's not a one-way direction. We need the intimacy, we need the connection, and we need the reflection of the other to even know the material that we're working with. But this is a time of mastery. Again, the interactions, the turning points in relationship that can really be bringing us back to center. And this can be a relaxation. This can be a chilling out in a certain respect. It's like, does it all have to happen overnight? Probably not. How much percentage of this person do we need in our life? Probably not 100%. How much, do we need to master ourselves? Probably unrealistic, taking that 30-day course and expecting total enlightenment at the end. How can we accept our humanity? How can we accept living with what we have right now? How do we accept and, in fact, fill ourselves up with what we are working with right now? And thank you for that feedback, John. It has taken most of my life to get to this peaceful environment. There's a comment on the fact that there's no traffic behind me. Those who've been tuning to my videos, you may know that that's been one of my number one complaints throughout life. In this last year, the moon's north node transited my moon in Taurus, which happens to square my moon's nodes, which is the signature of not having that peaceful space throughout my life up until this point. Finally having a peaceful space. This is a part of my own Taurus direction. Are my relationships looking perfect right now? Certainly not. Am I feeling thrilled and excited and motivated by the people around me? Admittedly, no, because a part of my pattern and cycle in relationship that seems to repeat and I can never get away from is a disappointment in my relating, in my desire for closeness and intimacy, and then not really getting there, my desire to share what I'm most passionate about and it not really happening. And I'm so used to this at this point. Now, what am I supposed to do? Give up on the need for connection, on the need to share what I'm passionate about, my needs for intimacy and relationship? Absolutely not. I have to continue to apply a conscious effort to get those needs met. To be honest, I'm a pretty lonely astrologer out here in the mountains. A lot of people have no idea via this misleading YouTube Leo-like persona that I'm not living a Hollywood star type of life, and it's nothing like this at all. I deal with isolation that's overwhelming regularly. And in fact, this last full moon on the nodes of Uranus really brought that experience up for me. I also have my 12th house solar return this month, and I'm very accustomed to the 12th house theme of suddenly going invisible, and everybody simultaneously drops the ball at the same time. And I experience this disappointment. And what's the point? What's the point of even trying? What's the point of even connecting? Just this disappointment after disappointment and never really being matched up perfectly. I would say this Venus-Pluto opposition is one of those times that really forces upon us the human experience. Is there such thing as a perfect relationship? Is there such thing as a perfect human? Is there anybody that we 100% get totally completed with by themselves and we don't need anything or anybody else outside of that thing or person? Only the most unhealthy relationships, I've noticed, adopt these coping mechanisms to avoid the deeper, more challenging things that do not want to be looked at. So there's all of these needs, long story short. But are they all being completed? Are they all being met? No. So where are we getting forced back to? That North Node and Taurus mastery. At least there is a peaceful environment. And honestly, on my worst days, I just sit out here on my porch, and just getting the sun and having the birds around me is enough. That's enough to tune into enough heaven to get through any of these challenging betrayals, deceptions, bullshit, projection. So I don't know about any of y'all. Again, I'm listening and keeping my eyes on the chat, but has anyone experienced any themes around projection recently? Venus opposite to Pluto. Has there been any experiences of being let down or a disconnect where there's a desire for connection? And could that potentially bring up any experience of, wasted potential? And then what we're evaluating is that potential. What we're evaluating is the worth and the value of what could be. There's a lot of yeses coming from the chat room. So this is not to throw the baby out, but we're really looking at this evaluation overall of core value. Valuation of core value on every single dimension and level. What really matters? What's really important? Who are the people that fill us up? What are we getting from the people that fills us up? Any questions about any of this, y'all? Venus, relationships, money, exchange, the need for harmony, balance, mutual give and take. Pluto, the unconscious, the depth of the soul, the need for evolution, the need for transformation, the need for disclosure, the need for radical honesty, which in a Pluto way is not going to lead us into a simple, pretty, I signed up for the right team, so I'm all perfect, I'm all good. We've all got karma, we've all got work, we've all got a shady, shadowy side of ourself. If we don't know that part of ourself exists, chances are we're ruled by that part of ourself. There's never been a more important time for us to be open to listening and receiving this type of deeper feedback. This would also be the perfect time to be seeking out therapy, to be connecting with someone who is willing to listen, Venus, to the depth of one's soul, Pluto. Be able to reflect back, Venus, what's going on in the unconscious, Pluto. Some people are pointing out just how intense this time is. I think that can be a cosmic experience. To be totally honest, again, this Venus-Pluto and how I mentioned how only a small percentage of the population is even willing to go to the dimension of Pluto, because we have to look at the scary parts of ourself. We have to look at the actual hell dimension of life, where we're suffering, where we have these redundant patterns that feel very imprisoning. And so for those who can actually go to that dimension, we can be holding a lot of space right now, because there's also going to be people that are really opting out of looking at their own shadow, of looking at the deeper motivations that are going on in unconscious space. And that puts more pressure on those that are highly attuned and aware to that dimension. I do think that these are particularly challenging times collectively. Yeah, someone mentioned that we can get stuck in shadow work. That's a very good point. That's, again, this dichotomy we can really be mastering with this Taurus Scorpio dichotomy is we've got to go into that furnace and then we've got to get out. And again, in this relational way, that's the paradox we're going to be actually experiencing, is that we need intimacy with others and we need space from other people. So this could actually be a time. I was born with Venus opposite to Pluto. I need to dip in and out because of the intensity of what comes up in my relations. And that goes both ways. I'm very intense as a Pluto person when I'm engaging with anybody. I get that reflection from others constantly. A very intense person. I'll stir the pot without even meaning to, just by showing up. And I go in very, very deep with people. That's actually what catalyzes. And that actually is that intensity. Is I merge souls with people. It's like I am in an intimate relationship with everybody I meet because of the depth that I go to in a very short amount of time. So I have to dip in and out of all of my relating. That's something that I am notorious for all the time. I have my moon's nodes in that second eighth polarity, Scorpio Taurus. Pluto square the nodes, Venus opposite to Pluto. So this is actually inherent in my life as well, but this is what we're all needing to do right now. The shadow work is too much. How do we get to high ground? What's the oxygen mask that we put on our own face? It's like days on, days off. High intensity, claustrophobic experience in relationship, distancing, processing, digesting that experience. We can come back around to it later. If we hold ourselves into the Pluto dimension too much, we go crazy. That's where we turn into the worst versions of ourselves. And it turns into fighting and really self-deprecating ways of being. Lord of the Flies. So we have to have the oxygen mask, the distance, the space, the sitting on the deck, just chilling under the sun, especially while we're digesting the intensity of the changes that could be going up. Someone asked, does Venus opposite Pluto relate to Inanna? Absolutely. The whole Taurus Scorpio polarity is Inanna. And so let's understand Venus. Venus is, honestly, as feminism has taken off, it's really good that we have so much divine feminine being appreciated, being reinvented and rebirthed. But Venus can really be played off as light, fluffy, like this fairy that's dancing around and sparkling love on everybody. And that's only half of Venus. The true Inanna Ishtar is the full Taurus Scorpio polarity. It is Venus and Pluto, is who Venus is, especially to the ancients before Pluto was known. Inanna is the goddess of warfare, as much as she is the goddess of love. She is the goddess of medicine, as much as she is the goddess of disease. She is the ability to destroy the soul, and she is the power to resurrect the soul from the dead. Venus has the potency to take the whole of humanity into the deepest realms of hell or heaven. So absolutely, this Venus-Pluto polarity brings up that archetype of Ishtar, Inanna, Lucifer, Venus, who is the template of humanity. This is, again, the ruler of the heart. So human beings all have this dual nature. Venus is a dual planet, just like Mercury. Our mind thinks in duality, and our senses process in duality. Do we know pleasure without pain? No. Venus is both pleasure and pain. Venus is love, and Venus is hate. My question for y'all, being embodiment of Venus, North Node completing Taurus, who amongst us is pretending that we do not love and hate? You all know how I love to put an encouraging pressure on the stereotypes of the New Age and how we all would love to see ourselves similarly to Venus as this deity that's light and fluffy and sparkly. But to be totally honest, if we were to look at the fullest of ourselves, who amongst us is pretending that we're all light and fluffy, that we're all happy and positive, and that we love every person on the planet? So this question of how we are relating absolutely brings up these total dichotomies, because where are we going to experience that total dichotomy of love and hate the most will be our most intimate relationships. It's Gemini season, yeah? Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. Who gets to see the full Mr. Hyde in us but our most intimate relationships? So any intimate relationships requires this reverberation between going in, getting the high ground, the need to do the shadow work, the need to point out the things that we don't want to look at. That is the challenge, right? So again, this is about initiating conflict. That's what's really important to understand, and how to bring this dichotomy together. Is it about not having conflict in relationship? Answer is no. We need conflict. Conflict is healthy and natural. Are we all going to understand, get along, and not have to create conflict when 90% of us is unconscious and 90% of us is the majority of the iceberg beneath the water? We need conflict to shine a light on these unconscious tensions, which then shines a light on the darkness and brings those things out of hiding. So it's not about avoiding conflict, it's how do we do conflict effectively? How do we hold a space for the love and the hate in our heart? Should we love all the parts of another person? Should we love the parts of another person that leads to their own suffering, to their own stagnation, to their own imprisonment? That doesn't make sense to me. Would that part in another person that's leading to stagnation and imprisonment and just continuing to harm themselves, that's something we should feel comfortable around? It's probably uncomfortable. It's probably unsettling. Is it easy for us to take a look at that part of ourself in the mirror and admit to ourselves that we have that part in ourselves too? So this is the Venus-Pluto opposition. It is the full and the total mirror. And that mirror catalyzes change, evolution, catharsis, releasing, and healing. Ultimately healing. Holding space for love and hate. Holding space for what's agreeable and disagreeable, which is the same as allowing for conflict in a way that can actually work. You see, if we can admit that all these parts exist in ourselves, Scorpio, the full spectrum, then we can probably create a space that's somewhat peaceful, stable, and accepting that that is the way that it is, Taurus. And if we're going to sweep under the rug the whole 90% of the majority of the iceberg, pretend that we don't have hatred in our hearts, ulterior motivations, and blind spots, I very much doubt that's going to allow for more tranquility when eventually our self-deceptive bubble is popped. Venus-Pluto opposition is going to pop that bubble, because we're receiving through the mirror, hey, this is the pattern. Hey, it seems like, you kind of are this way. You've got this value system. This is what you like. This is what you don't like. This is what you're seeking. And do we know all those parts in ourself? Probably not. We probably need a good mirror to hear back and have reflected back to ourselves the full spectrum of who we are and what we're working with. One way to opt out of this transit in a way that just would not ever work, but a lot of people try to do this through the superficial way of relating, is you just jump from one person to the next before it sinks down to a certain level of intimacy, and then you don't know anything. You don't know anything about yourself. You don't get any helpful feedback. And again, I have simply observed that there is a significant percentage of the population that continuously chooses that way of living and relating. They are so afraid of hell, they create the most hellish existence for themselves by creating a deception. And then just running into that deception, running into that deception, running into that deception to avoid the deeper, more hidden motivations. And yes, we can change. It is with our total awareness of the full spectrum that we gain the capacity to change. Because until we become aware of the dimension of Pluto, we are like a marionette being pushed and pulled by different desires, different feelings, and we run these narratives to excuse these behaviors that are totally nonsensical. Oh, well, they pissed me off. Well, I'm on this mission. Well, this is just the way that I am, and this is just what always happens. And why? Why does that always happen? Why is this dynamic existing? So we are completely controlled and manipulated by ourselves and our own unconscious until we are willing to expose the fullness of ourself to ourself, and that takes very real courage. It's kind of an interesting balance in a Taurus Scorpio way, the need for this kindness and stability and patience with the need to get real and expose and talk about what's really going on and not pretend and not sugarcoat. That takes an enormous degree of mastery. And that really is what we can be getting initiated into, which we're probably not getting initiated into in oh, you got 100% A plus on your test. Job well done. More of a, okay, this is breaking down. Okay, this really doesn't work. Okay, I do have these needs. This is about survival. This is about forming a new way of relating that really works, because we do need what works. We cannot allow ourselves to just spin out in the delusions of the past, the medieval age, the nightmares of our childhood, the nightmares of our past relationships, right? So we can change these things. How we change those things is through our willingness to get messy, to bring our full wisdom of awareness to the depths of Pluto, to the depths of the unconscious. And I'm letting y'all know, because this is a part of the philosophy, the paradigm that I'm attempting to share and bring here. It is not all fit into boxes, moralistic, good girl, bad girl, reward, punishment. Tim, would you consider joining me in divorce meditation? Humored in gratitude. That's actually quite brilliant. And we all need this, right? We all need a healthy amount of marriage and divorce, even in our ongoing relationships, do we not? But do we need to learn how to divorce and how to separate? I would actually suggest that to be one of the most missing needs at the tail end of the Pisces Christian era. Again, it is actually this unwillingness to be messy ourselves and to admit the full shadowy nature of ourselves that most people continue to live a life of deception and delusion and escapism. So, how do we end that? By ending it, divorcing, separating, creating closure. In the Venus-Pluto way, can that be challenging when we love somebody, when we wanted to connect with them and we wanted intimacy from them and it's not working? Yeah. But in a Taurus way, do we have to see where people are not changing, just seeing how people are, accepting how people are? Easier said than done, right? But yes. What it comes down to, just reflecting off of the conversation and the feedback here, in any relationship, we have to know that we are hurtful. We have to know that we will hurt those that we love the most, like it or not. It's not about liking it, it's about accepting reality. So, do we have to listen to and receive the feedback of how, where, and why we are hurtful in our relationships? 100% yes. Everybody must. We must be willing to know where we are hurtful. Nobody is clean or free from that. And boy, do we run into trouble when we start inventing narratives or creating stories to delude ourselves into. I mean, the only reason why that happens in the first place is when there's a tremendous wound, a tremendous trauma, or a tremendous insecurity that forces that need to protect ourselves from what is too much to process at the time. So as much as I point out the fact that I think Pluto is too much for the majority of the population, I oftentimes receive the feedback that it's good to have a fair amount of grace for my fellow mankind. This is pretty intense stuff that we're living, and it is honestly going to be too much. And it is honestly too much for any one of us at particular moments of intensity. So, we don't even seek therapy until we're ready for therapy. Do we all need therapy? Mm-hmm. Yep. Could all really benefit from therapy, especially right now. All right. I'm feeling that this stream is winding down. We're coming up to 50 minutes for those who are here. There's about 300 of you. It should not take too long for this video to process, so you can go back around and catch the beginning while I, best I can, attempt to share. Oh, you can see it a little bit easier now. So we'll do this again. This whole video has been a meditation contemplation. I know it's mirrored here, of Venus. Just entered Leo, 0 degrees, went opposite to Pluto, 0 degrees Aquarius. These are the rulers of the moon's nodes. Venus rules the north node in Taurus. Pluto rules the south node in Scorpio. In evolutionary astrology, we are moon's nodal astrologers. This is the collective evolution. The rulers of those nodes is the collective evolution. So again, everything that we're talking about in this video is this relational paradox, and how there can be this very catalytic turning point, and how we're relating in all ways, period. Because we did not so much talk about money, finances. This could very much play out in the realm of money, finances. Venus is the principle of exchange. Any other comments or questions before we wrap up this live stream? And again, the live chat will be available in the video playback as well. And thanks y'all for joining me. It's been a bit more of an experiment with this YouTube live. But this is something I'd like to do more in the future, do more of a Q&A style sharing. That's my own passion and personal favorite with sharing. Well, someone asked to talk more about money. That's a little bit more easier said than done, but I think that a part of this can involve how do we get our base needs met? Of course, money is a huge part of this, but there can be a general theme of less is more, minimalizing, downscaling. That doesn't mean we stop going to work either. That could involve us getting a side job. but it's something that we just do, and it provides what we need to. Check mark. How do we get these needs met? Where are the supportive people? Who's got the resources? Who's got the backing? It's the time to open doors and close doors in terms of money exchange. Thank you all very much. It has been really enjoyable connecting with you all, doing the live this way. I enjoy receiving your feedback through the chat. Thank you so much for being here with me now in this particularly potent moment in time. It is a joy, as always, to connect and share with like minds. And for those who want to continue the conversation later on this month, and in fact, every month, I do a Q&A that's kind of in this style and format. But I get your birth chart. If you want to take a look at it, you can ask a personal question, what's going on in your life right now. I do have a screen share, so that way I can point out the transits, circle the parts of your chart, really demonstrate the evolutionary astrology in real time, understand the formula, understand the methods, see how it works, but also get a little bit of a support group where we get to see, wow, we are all living these things right now. Wow, we all have a different experience of life and we can relate. It's a really magical exchange that we do every month at the Q&A. So I'll put a link in the video description so you'll know where to go. The website is rasalilacommunity.com. But for those who'd like to continue the conversation, I look forward to continuing to connect and share with you there. Wishing you all the very best as we culminate and complete this nodal transit of Taurus and Scorpio. And we'll be completing the South Node in Scorpio under a Pluto in Capricorn. So hang in there, y'all. It's intense. There's a lot of change. Not everything is finished. We're looking at a lot of loose ends right now, but keep your chin up. So even if it's not all landing overnight, we can be landing big pieces right now and very much paying it forward. So be graceful on yourself. Keep it light. Always come back to those Taurus remedies when necessary. More naps, more snacks, more walks through the garden, sensory self-pleasure, somatic therapies, really simple, easy stuff to keep our head on straight, to breathe it all through, to come back to center. Thank you very much again. I look forward to connecting and sharing with y'all next time. As always, take care.